Back in 1975, Jaws came into the world. The terrifying story of a small seaside town being terrorised by a giant killer shark took global audiences by storm and quickly became the highest grossing movie of all time and changed cinema forever. So my name is Craig and thank you for clicking on this video. This is a film which has been on the forefront of pop culture for 50 years. I mean, that's a long time. This is the film which revolutionised cinema and placed Steven Spielberg's name in lights. And we all know it introduced the blueprint of the summer blockbuster with its relentless marketing campaign. It is, of course, the one and only Jaws, a film which I love so much evidently, and I've seen more times than I can remember, and it never gets old. So I was too young to see Jaws at the cinema, but I did see it when it first premiered on British telly back in October 1981. I'd heard of it before then, and I remember my dad having a paperback version of the book when I was really small. But that night it aired, it was just legendary, and it attracted 23 million viewers. That's mad. Nothing ever gets that close these days, and I remember it being the talk of the schoolyard the next day. Everybody talking about the popping head with no eye and the leg being bitten off. It was just a phenomenon, and one I don't think I've ever truly gotten over. So by the time it was shown again the following year, because we did that back in the day, I had our very own Betamax video and I recorded it, which meant that I could watch it every day, and every day I did. I can even recite the whole film, I think. I just love everything. The acting, the characters brought to life by Roy Scheider, Robert Shaw and Richard Dreyfuss, and of course John Williams' iconic score and those locations at Martha's Vineyard, and even the special effects. I mean, I don't care that Bruce the Shark is clearly rubber. I love it so much, and there's something here which is magical because it's been lovingly crafted by hand, and it shows. So I've seen it on the cinema since, and it still captures my heart, and I want to celebrate its 50th birthday with just having a little chinwag about it. So this is my first deep dive, and coincidentally it's a fishy film, and certainly one that feels a little intimidating because there isn't much left to say about Jaws which hasn't already been said. But here we can take a look at it once again for its 50th birthday and just remember how brilliant it is. Okay, so Jaws opens up with that amazing musical score that kicks off slow and scary with the white titles on the black screen, but then we cut to that ominous shark POV gliding through the corals. I just love it. I do notice that the title font is different to that than what's on the poster and the marketing, and I wonder if this is because it's been edited by the time it got to the marketing stage. Maybe. Do you know? We open on the beach where there's a hippie campfire going on, and it's only 5 years out of the 60s here, so playing acoustic guitars and harmonicas were definitely still a thing. And we follow Tom and Chrissy, who leave the party rather impromptu to flee across the beach, stripping off for a midnight skinny dip. In the dark. I mean, they're flinging their clothes in every direction, and I've always wondered how the hell they're going to find their clothes when they come out of the water. Not that it really matters for Chrissy, she doesn't need them anymore, and this isn't a spoiler, we've all seen Jaws, right? And I just love the scene where a silhouetted Chrissy swims in the moonlight. It's just beautiful and menacing at the same time, as if something below is watching her. And it's a scene that's very reminiscent of Creature from the Black Lagoon. But then the score kicks in, we know something bad is going to happen, and it does, and poor Chrissy is thrown around and nobody can hear her screams, not even Tom, who is now passed out on the beach. Now, it's a great opening scene and certainly is mysterious and sets the tone for the rest of the movie, and we know there's something out there in the water, and we know it's going to get a lot worse. Now there's this cool transition from night to day, and then the feeling of normality creeps in and we're in the home of the Brody residence. So we meet Martin Brody, who's played by Roy Scheider, his wife Ellen, who's played by Lorraine Gary, and his two sons Michael and Sean. I mean, already Brody is a gem. We learn he's from New York. He's now the police chief of a small seaside town that we know is called Amity. And of course he's an outsider, and he's trying to make it to fit in to a close-knit community. and he's about to face a whole lot of trouble. So Brody finds what's left of Chrissy on the beach, and it's covered in seaweed and there's crabs scuttling around it, and the way the whole situation is handled is great here, because the whole town is on full on denial mode. It's just a boating accident, let's get back to the beach, they say. And of course that's when you realise the true villain in George isn't just the unknown thing that's killed Chrissy, it's also the town's complacency, especially Mayor Vaughan and his influence. And Murray Hamilton is just a brilliant character actor who carries off this role perfectly. He was also in a similar role in the Amityville Horror, where he played this priest who just did not want to believe that that house was possessed. And those characters probably made him a lot of money. Now I love how this film doesn't rush to make Brody a hero. He's just an everyday bloke doing his job, and it seems the biggest thing that ever usually happens in Amity is kids
karateing the picket fences.
But now they have a killer shark on the loose. So Brody's trying to warn them and close the beaches, but Vaughan is more focused on the summer dollars to care. It's like, who needs safety when you've got tourists buying ice cream and beach towels? But Brody is not giving up, and I love that he's willing to go against the grain. He's not a hero yet, but he's already starting to show what kind of man he is. And this is what makes Jaws so effective, and it's the realism and the small town politics. I mean, that's real, that's life, and it's a perfect commentary of how sometimes the powers that will be choose profit over safety. It's kind of a subtle jab at the way the world works, and you can't help but feel for Brody as he's trying to protect the people who just won't listen. And you know something bad is going to happen, and it's just around the corner. Okay, so we're now back on the beach and things are about to take a terrifying turn. I mean, there's something about the normalcy of the scene. We hear small talk while Brody watches swimmers. We even get a few false alarms like Bad Hat Harry. But this scene seems very Hitchcockian to me. The tension is racking up and nothing is happening. That gnawing feeling of something just waiting to explode. Enter Alex Kintner. He's a poor kid who's on the beach with his mother and just wants to enjoy a day in the water until that agonising POV of the creature as it rises up from the depths to get that poor kid on his inflatable. And the attack itself is brutal. And Alex is pulled under in a spray of blood, and his inflatable washes up on the shore with a huge bite mark out of it, like this big. And all of a sudden the shark is no longer some far off idea or theory, it's a cold hard fact, and Vaughan and his minions, well, they just can't ignore it anymore. Or can they? So the death of young Alex is the turning point, and it's a wake up call that forces Brody into action. And it's also the moment that the viewer realises how personal things are going to get. So the town goes crazy with Alex Kintner's mother offering a $3,000 reward for killing the shark. But what gets me is, even though this poor kid has just been eaten alive on the beach, I'm stunned that the people of Amity still think closing the beaches is the worst thing ever. What? Really? Then we get to meet my favourite character in the entire movie, and it's the eccentric, grizzled, salty old sea dog Sam Quint, who's played by British actor Robert Shaw, and you just get a whiff of fish just by looking at him. So Quint wants $10,000, but he does promise to deliver the head, the tail, the whole damn thing. So things do go a little crazy here with the locals, who try their chance at being a have-a-go hero, like the two hapless fishermen who decide to try and hunt the shark one dusky evening in their tiny fishing boat. And this is a really clever scene, as both men manage to entice the shark with a piece of meat, only for one of them to find themselves in the water swimming like mad to get out. We don't see anything of the shark other than the piece of wood that's chained to the bait. But we do know that Spielberg used this technique as the mechanical shark was so unreliable, but it works beautifully to the film's advantage. And thinking of what is under that dark water, it's the stuff of nightmares. Meanwhile, as the bounty has been offered, the town still continues to go absolutely nuts, with the local fishermen going out in their boats to try and claim the prize. And it's here that we meet Matt Hooper, who completes our holy trinity. And he is of course played by Richard Dreyfuss, who I think is just great. He's quirky, very likeable, and he's the expert from the Oceanographic Institute, and he demands to see Chrissy's remains to make his verdict. Now, I remember as a kid seeing that severed arm that he lifts up, and that was the talk of the schoolyard the next day. I mean, I'd seen nothing like it at the time. It was so gory. And back to the story, Hooper is a much needed support for Brody and agrees that there's a killer shark out there. Finally, Brody has got an ally. Now, things do take an interesting turn when local fishermen announce that they've captured the shark. But it's the wrong one, and we know it's the wrong one. I mean, it's a big shark for sure, but it's not the shark. And Hooper, of course, is the first to call it out. He is the rational one, the scientist, who knows sharks like nobody else. And then we get this really sweet moment that honestly feels a little emotional. So Brody's at home, clearly weighed down by everything that's going on. I mean, he's just had a hefty whack across the chops by Alex Kinter's mother. But why Brody? She should have swung for that Mare Vaughan, who smugly stands in the background. So Brody sits at the dinner table, nursing a drink, staring off into space, and it's his younger son, Sean, starts copying him. And every little move, the hand on the face, the blink, the tilt of the head, the little facial expressions, it's such a tender human scene that grounds everything. And for a minute, the killer shark is forgotten. We're just watching a dad and his son silently connect in the middle of all this madness. And it's moments like this that elevate Jaws from just a thriller with a big bite to something with a real heart. But it doesn't last very long because we're back in the thick of it, and Brody and Hooper sneak off to perform an impromptu autopsy on the shark that was caught. It's because they want to be sure it's the right one. They cut open the shark and they pull out this whole buffet of junk. There's a license plate, there's a crushed tin can, but there's no remains of Chrissy or young Alex. So that's it. They're now 100% sure that this isn't their shark. And this just raises the stakes even more because the real shark is still out there, still hungry and still hunting. And I've got to say, this next scene still gets under my skin every time I watch it. So it's the scene where Hooper and a drunken Brody venture out on Hooper's fancy vessel, where they encounter the abandoned fishing boat that belonged to the local fisherman Ben Gardner. Now, Ben Gardner, for anyone who doesn't know, is the gobby fisherman we saw on the dock earlier in the film. Now, this leads us to that brilliant, creepy as hell night dive scene where Hooper inspects Ben Gardner's boat, and the moment he finds that giant tooth stuck in the hull, and then it's got to be one of the best jump scares ever. It also proves the presence of a great white, which is the real killer, and of course the tooth gets dropped so no one believes them because they don't have the evidence. So we get another scene with Vaughan as Brody joins Hooper, and they're both trying to convince this annoying mare to close the beaches, but he's still having none of it, and still only cares about bloody money and tourism. That iconic defaced poster is just class. And what is going to take this mayor to see sense? Well, he doesn't have to wait long because we arrive on the 4th of July and the beach is packed. The sun's out and people are nervous, but Vaughan is doing PR control like a madman. He even pressures his own officials to go into the water with their families to make it look safe. And there's our false alarm with the two kids with a plastic fin.
He made me do it.
He talked me into it.
But then the real attack happens. There's this poor guy in a little rowboat who's helping out some kids, and one of them is Michael Brody. And just like that, the shark is there. And this time it bites the guy and chomps his leg straight off. And you actually see this leg floating down to the seabed. It's a little rubbery, it's got a little bounce, but this was pure gruesome for a 7-year-old me. Now that moment when everyone starts running out of the water, that's when Vaughan finally gets it. So finally he signs that check, $10,000, that means Quint is in. And now we're on my favourite stretch of the movie, it's the third act. So we head over to Quint's place with Hooper and Brody, and it's like stepping into a whole different world. There's nautical junk everywhere, shark jaws on the walls, and you just know this guy has seen things. They sit down and share a toast. He's just swimming with boat-legged women. Classic Quint, he's just pure character. What I especially love here is the tension between Quint and Hooper.
Just tie me a sheep shank.
So you've got this rugged working class old sea dog who spent his life battling the ocean, And then there's Hooper, this educated, tech-savvy rich kid with all this fancy gear, and it's such a great dynamic. You can feel the clash of worlds, their snidey jabs, the constant baiting.
I don't need this working class hero crap.
And the whole crushing the paper cup against the can, that is absolute comedy gold. I think Hooper is hilarious. But then the movie shifts gear. So we head out on Quint's vessel, Orca, with Brody, Hooper and Quint, and it feels like a whole new film. So Spielberg here drops us into this seafaring adventure. We're on this open sea, having this intimate voyage with these three guys who don't fully trust each other, hunting a killer. I mean, it's like a boy's own adventure, something like Treasure Island, only this is more dangerous and real. So then it happens, the shark finally appears, and that line, "Come on down and chomp some of this shit." And there is Bruce with his first screen appearance, and it's fantastic. And Brody just backs up in shock, "You're gonna need a bigger boat." Probably the most quoted line in movie history. Now, people always said the shark looks crap and looks fake, but you know, I've always loved it. I mean, seriously. And I'm really excited that NECA has released the 50th anniversary of the Jaws game. I've got that on pre-order. I can't wait for it to come. So they harpoon the shark and attach those yellow barrels to track it, and it's such a clever visual tool. Spielberg has shown us the shark without showing us the shark. And there's something about the stretch of the film that feels pure adventure. The three of them out there, sharing stories, comparing notes, and then comparing scars. And then there's that speech. I mean, Quint telling the story of the USS Indianapolis. The atmosphere then changes, the music fades, and it's just Quint in the low light, recounting the most horrifying story of survival that you probably ever hear. You hear about the shark circling, the fear, the helplessness, and it suddenly makes everything turn personal, and you finally understand Quint and why this mission is like life or death to him. Now again, Robert Shaw nails this role as the hardened fisherman who has a personal vendetta against sharks, and the way he talks about the USS Indianapolis, it gives this character a whole new layer. It's a perfect example of Jaws using character backstory to create tension. Then things go downhill for the men. The orca is falling apart, literally. The shark is stronger, smarter and more relentless than they ever imagined. Quint here starts unravelling and becoming more and more manic. You can feel the madness is starting to take over. And eventually even Quint has to admit his old school methods aren't quite cutting it. So he lets Hooper have his shark cage moment. And this scene, wow. Hooper descends into the depths in that tiny cage with that shark coming in view as it glides past, mouth open wide as we get John Williams' iconic score. Then boom! The shark attacks the cage in this fantastic jump scare and demolishes it, and Hooper barely escapes, but the real gut punch comes from the next scene, which is Quint's death. It's brutal. The shark smashes against the orca, everything is falling apart, and Quint slides down into the beast's mouth. He might fight and kick, but it's got him, and there's lots of blood, and then he's gone. Just like that. And that scene kind of feels heartbreaking because I seriously loved Quint. What a character. But now it's all down to Brody. Down to the everyman, the bloke with no ocean experience, the bloke who's terrified of water, he's had no fancy training. It's just grit, instinct and a desperate will to survive. Brody climbs the mast of the sinking orca, rifle in hand, compressed air tank in the shark's mouth. He takes an aim, misses, and the shark is charging at him, and the tension here is off the scale.
Smile, you son of a...
Kaboom! He nails it. The shark explodes in a gory mess and sinks to the bottom of the ocean. And everything is calm again. The threat is gone, and immediately the birds start feeding on the remains of the shark, and it shows nature at its cruelest. It's an endless food chain. Hooper resurfaces and they paddle home to John Williams' poignant orca theme. Two survivors making their way quietly back to land. And that is Jaws, the movie that has more than stood the test of time and still is amazing 50 years later. It's not just about the shark, it's about those characters, the atmosphere, the way that Spielberg builds tension without seeing the shark for most of the time. This is about how people react in a crisis, and it's about survival. Jaws just isn't a horror film, it's a study of fear, courage, and how we deal with the things that scare us the most in nature. Now, Jaws, of course, went on to become a phenomenon at the box office and became the highest grossing film of all time for a while until Star Wars, but it did make Steven Spielberg a household name. It was nominated for 4 Oscars and won 3: Best Film Editing, Best Dramatic Score and Best Sound. It was nominated for Best Picture, but lost out to One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which is a great film by the way, but not one that I watch half as much as Jaws. So how does Jaws rate on the Wookieometer, which is a new addition to my channel? Let's take a look. So for plot, I'm going to rate Jaws a resounding 5 out of 5. It is such a fantastic story that keeps you glued to your seat all the way through it. And for quality, I'm going to rate Jaws again 5 out of 5 because it is such an amazing, important benchmark of cinema. And for acting, it's another 5 out of 5 because the acting is timeless. Robert Shaw's performance as Quint is definitely one of my all-time favourites. For special effects, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. It is a 50-year-old film, but I prefer this over any CGI any day. Bruce is just amazing. He's iconic. I love him so much, and it just adds to the film's charm. And for rewatchability, again, it is a resounding 5 out of 5 because I don't know how many times I've revisited Amity over the years, and I'll probably continue to do so. It is just a fantastic, iconic, amazing film that just blows me away every time I watch it. And that's it for me today, so I do hope you've enjoyed this video. If you do like it, give it a like, give it a subscribe, all of that jazz. It really, really helps me to build the channel. But until next time, guys, I will see you soon. Take care now.